Hello again. So, another really exciting topic, asset stability, and how do you really balance the needs of the owners and also the brands. First of all, we'll have a one-on-one with Serena Lim, who is Chief Growth Officer at Ascott, and this will be followed by a panel of distinguished gentlemen in approximately 15 minutes. So I'd like to invite you, please, Serena, to the stage. All right. Thank you for gracing us with your presence.
Thank you for having me here.
I'd like to start off with really the mantra behind Ascott, because you've described Ascott as a lodging company rather than a traditional hotel or hospitality company. How does that broader identity underpin the way that you structure deals to keep both the returns and brand strengths in balance?
Well, thank you for the question. It's a pretty long question, so let us break it up a bit. So, at Ascott, our vision is to enhance global living with personalized, heartfelt experiences. We also see ourselves as not just a hotel operator, but someone who really is able to provide accommodation solutions to all stay occasions and all different types of consumers as well. So you take a look at the products and the accommodation offerings that we offer. It's not only hotels, it's resorts, it's service apartments, it's also experience-led social living, it's immersive getaways, it's branded residences. And we feel that, with this large spread of a diversified product offering, we are therefore able to be a solution provider to our guests and also to our owners, and be a bit more of have a market-driven approach, which I think is really, really critical, today. So all our brands have the ability to go into a multi-typology brand strategy, if you would, across all the various products. Now, we also have an interesting business model that many may not know, but it's something called Flex Hybrid. And because of the various products that we mentioned just now, we are also able to cater to short-term stay as well as extended term stay. So what this means is that whether we're staying for 1 night, 4 nights, 1 month, we would be able to service that. And that gives us the ability to provide a much more diversified offering. And we feel that this is, indeed something which gives us the edge, and it's why we call ourselves, not just a hotel operator, but an accommodation provider. So that's really critical. Now, on top of what we described just now, is that because of our multi-typology brand strategy, it is also very important for us to be very market-driven. So, this whole panel is about, owner returns as well.
Yes.
And so being, market-driven and also being very clear in terms of the facilities that we need to be able to meet the needs of our evolving consumer is also critical. So we don't do a one-size-fits-all, we don't do a copy-paste, but rather time is spent to understand the locale, the market generators, for us to then decide, do we need to scale up certain facilities? Do we need to scale down certain facilities? Do we need to do something different? And I think that is all part about, being able to, sort of pull together strong brand as well as owner returns, and they go hand to hand. And in Saudi, it's especially important, right? Because Saudi is changing so quickly.
Yep.
Now, the guest of today is going to be very different for the guest of tomorrow and the guest for the future. But when you build a property, it lasts. So how are you then able to allow adaptability within the construct of a building, which I think is important. And for us, with the multi-typology and with our market-driven focus, it then allows us to create and work with the owner to build and deliver future-proof assets, which I think is really, really critical.
Absolutely. Thinking about the design of the asset and how it can be in the future reconfigured to address these evolving needs. Now, how does Ascot specifically look at and monitor these evolving needs of the consumer?
Right. So, one thing that is very critical for us is that, we are very close to our consumers. So we've been in this business for about 41 years. So besides the loyalty program, we also have, very clear touch points with, our guests, the corporate travelers, the leisure travelers, and we listen to them, to understand their needs. And the issue and the most important thing is how do we then create adaptable design? Right, and adaptable facilities, so that when we design something, it's multi-use. Because very often than not, when we go to some properties, some of the spaces are empty. It may be used only in the morning, but in the evening, in the daytime, maybe it's not so busy. So how do you then create that adaptability to use spaces in a multifunctional way? Now, also bearing in mind that in this industry, as we all know, it's extremely seasonal. You have, peak seasons, you have off-peak seasons, and you go through a whole cycle. So how are you then able to, with the distribution, for us to be able to feed and to ensure that the asset value is being, retained, at the same time making sure that all the facilities that are in the hotel and the properties are being utilized. So that's also very key sort of focus that we have in our organization.
Excellent. Now, I'd like to refer to a very specific brand, Life. So Life, as you termed it, your mid-market lifestyle brand, and it's expected to enter Saudi Arabia very, very soon.
Yes.
Now, I would love to understand, how do you localize an experience-driven brand without diluting margins or over-investing in hard assets?
All right, so for those who may not know, so Life is our lifestyle and it's a experience-led social living brand. Now, when we talk about social living, it talks more about social programming. And so Life's a brand that is high energy and is also community-driven. So what we try to do is to be able to take the best of the location, take the best of the community, and to put that into each of our Live properties so that we are able to provide heartfelt experiences. So that's Life. To your question about scalability, and especially in a market like Saudi, whereby there's so many, it's so fast-paced. How do we do that in scalability? So the interesting thing about Life is about the power of programming, the power of activation, the power of agility, versus relying on hard design or fixed design. So it's the power of programming and activation. So case in point, the first Live property was opened in Funan in Singapore. That was 6 years ago. And there is an area in each of our hotels and our properties that's called the Connect area, which is basically the community area. Now, in Live Funan, that same area, we have used it for various activities. We have held the ULI property sessions before. We have done curated movie nights. We have done Pilates yoga sessions. And just last year, what we did was that we wanted to give a proposal and an option to the tech startup companies. And we conducted a hackathon in Live Funan. So we have 100 delegates from around the world going to Live Funan, where they can program and do what they do. They can also test in the real world their products, their ideas, all in the same space. So you think about it, we were able to bring in the corporates, the business travelers. We were able to bring the moviegoers, the wellness concept to it as well, and also the tech industry. So I think that is very, very important from a Live perspective. And so when we talk about Live, we always say that it is content and not CapEx.
Content and not CapEx.
Exactly.
Love that.
Whereby the agility of the space and the importance of programming is critical. So it's not about building more, it's about better programming.
Social programming.
Social programming, so that the community, right, it's community-driven. So we're building a community within the property, we're bringing in community into the property as well. Now, Life, as much as it's an experience-led social living brand, I have to say that the Life rooms, they are private rooms, right? They're private rooms. No one's sharing any rooms. It is the community space that's being shared.
Yep.
And I think that, in a market like Saudi, whereby in relation to the Vision 2030, where we're talking about, youth empowerment, about innovation, it's about local culture. With lives that we're bringing into the kingdom, it's not about just bringing a new brand, but it is about creating a platform for Saudi to have these creative innovation as well as connection. And I think that's really powerful and meaningful. And you think about Life, Funan, which was built back in 2019, that, till today, 6 years down the road, we are still able to do really, really interesting programming and keeping it fresh. And again, exceeding market share and doing very, really well. And I think that is the excitement about Life and the scalability of Life. So the one big takeaway is it's content and context and not CapEx.
And from my perspective, I think that should be every new brand that gets developed today should bear this in mind. It's not simply about cookie cutter anymore. And that should be the mentality moving forward in general, in fact.
Exactly. And I think with the whole programming notion, what we also do is that we bring the programming through local artists, pop-ups, local content creators. And that's how you bring the collaboration of localization of the brand into the location. So very exciting.
Serena, looking 5 years out, what single risk could upset the asset level stability for both owners and brands? And what contingency measures do you think should be placed?
So I think that if you take a look at Saudi, it's not about, it's about building bolder, but it's also about building smart. And I think that's critical. Yeah. And we talk about all the things, just now in terms of being very market-driven, about the agility of spaces, about future-proofing. That's really, really critical. It's about being smart and bold at the same time. And boldness can also come through programming, as I mentioned about. So what are we doing? We talked about the flex hybrid, whereby we are able to distribute and bring in guests both from a short-term and a longer-term perspective, so that we are able to feed and sustain the market and the asset value for the owners. The second thing that we're doing also is to be always mindful about staffing, about people, which is also very critical, because it is about being able to provide lean operations that allows the property to sustain throughout the entire life cycle. And it's about diversity, looking at different segments, looking at different geo sources, and allowing the market demand to also transcend into how we deliver the experience through the agility of spaces that we have created. So all that's very important to ensure is good future-proofing, market-driven, bringing both the brand and owner's return so that we can all coexist together, which is critical.
Absolutely. Permanent population, semi-permanent population coming together, coexisting, and it's community-driven at the end of the day.
That's right.
And you do feel fully immersed in the community while you're there. We can talk all about Ascott having its roots outside of Saudi, but when it enters Saudi, that dissipates, that goes away. And you do feel that you're part of that community, even if you're a transient visitor into that community.
Exactly. And I think also, from an Ascott positioning as well, because we are a global operator, for us to also bring the learnings into each market that we, operate in, and to have a very strong local team. So it's the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. Excellent. Well, Serena, thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. A hand for Serena, everyone.